Hi, folks. It's Congressman Jared Huffman. I am the Congressman for California's beautiful North Coast, and this is my first Instagram Live. This out. I'm going to bring in my Washington, D.C. roommates, Congressman Mike Levin from Southern California and Congressman
Oh.
Greg Stanton from Phoenix, Arizona. And a lot of our constituents around the country have been asking what the heck is going on in this country. And so House Democrats are doing something new and different. We are going live every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday with a little program appropriately called WTF, because a lot of us are asking WTF right now. And what better day to ask that question than the day after that surreal, dystopic, train wreck dumpster fire of a State of the Union address by Donald Trump. So, look, with that, I am going to bring in my roommates here, and let's go to Congressman Levin first. And I will just ask you, Mike, what happened last night? What was that? But Mike's not there. So we're going to go to Greg Stanton. Greg, what happened last night?
WTF? What happened last night? I can't, obviously the president got up there and uh, spewed every inconsistency, lie, you name it. I mean, a guy talks about lowering costs, but yet he wants to have the highest tariffs, one of the highest tariffs in American history, which is going to massively increase costs for American families, working class families, and middle class families. You know, the guy talks about cutting the CHIPS Act. Man, that's personal to Arizona.
Yeah,
No state has done better with the CHIPS Act for
that was
semiconductor
bipartisan
investment.
too. And the Republicans just clapped along. Uh, that was another WTF.
By the way, many of the same Republicans that voted for.
Oh, there he goes.
Well, WTF on Greg's connection. That's a chance to go to you, Mike, and ask what was that thing masquerading as a presidential address to a joint session last night?
Well, first of all, Jared, let me say how nice it is to do this with you and Greg. And for those that are watching this and have no idea, the three of us are roommates. I don't know if you had that set up in the open. I was a couple minutes behind
Yes.
here. But we're doing this from our respective offices rather than our townhouse because our landlord, Mr. Huffman's, working on the Wi-Fi. I'll just say that. So for everyone out there, if you wonder why we're all in our individual offices, but I know that's going to be resolved soon. That'll be resolved a lot sooner than all the other problems with our country. And, you know, yesterday was, I have to say it was not completely surprising to me, but shocking nonetheless.
Yeah.
In the sense that I didn't expect all of a sudden for Donald Trump to become a bipartisan, polite, genteel person. But I was hoping that maybe there'd be something in there about reducing costs, about addressing inflation, maybe an olive branch extended. I mean, we are, half the country, so you would think that he would want to work with us to an extent. And I was just thinking as I was sitting there that we had so many presidents over the years, Republican presidents, Democratic presidents, and I didn't always agree with everything that any of the presidents. I never agreed 100% on any of it, but I always felt that all of them really cared about trying to bring our country a little bit closer together and, appealing to the greater good. And at the end of the day, that's, I think, my biggest takeaway is that was so fundamentally different what we saw last night.
We got Greg
so overtly
back.
Yes,
I totally
overtly
agree with you, Mike,
partisan.
because
Yes.
every prior president at least tried to represent the whole country, at least tried to convey the message that we're all fellow Americans in this together. Not
Right.
so with this guy.
Right.
It was just insults and provocations and taunting and trolling. But Greg, what do you think?
Well, tell me what you really think. Holy cow. Look, what do I think? Look, I tried to actually sit there and take notes. So much commentary about who clapped for what, didn't clap. You know, at the end of the day, none of that matters. This is the President of the United States, getting up in front of the American people and spewing a series of falsities. He talks about a balanced budget. Are you kidding? Did they not just pass a budget resolution, his budget resolution last week, a resolution that will blow up the federal deficit and debt? And he goes before the American people just a few days later and says he wants to
Balance the
balance
budget.
the budget. He says, well, we're not going to touch Social Security, but he went through and basically said the Social Security system is one big fraud, backing up Elon Musk claim that it's one big Ponzi scheme, and they're going to claim that they're coming after Social Security. We're not. The American people are not dumb. They can read exactly what you're doing. Is that you are setting up coming after Social Security. So I know so much debate about who waved signs and clapped or didn't. All of that is irrelevant to what the president of the United States actually said he was going to do in this country. And the answer to that is WTF.
Yeah, I want to agree with you on that. And I think we probably each, the three of us, struggled with this moment because there's no right way or wrong way to simultaneously do our job, which is to show up and be members of Congress, but to also convey what people need to hear. This is not normal. This is not okay. We are just as alarmed and outraged as all of you. I think we each tried to do it in different ways, and we didn't have consensus on the best way to do it. I had constituents with passionate opinions, in totally opposite directions on what I should have done, but I ended up showing up. I did hold a sign that fact checked and said save Medicaid. And at the end of the day, by the time he got to crazy stuff on Greenland, I couldn't take anymore and I had to walk out. But what did each of you do?
I sat there for 99 minutes. You ever go to a movie and it's a really bad movie, but you feel obligated that, you bought the ticket, you're there, and you need to stay to the end to see how it ends. It was like watching a bad movie unfold, and it was incredibly sad. Parts of it were deeply offensive. At the end of the day, I felt that it's 99 minutes of my life I will never have back.
Yeah. Greg?
I mean, here's what I thought. I don't care what signs anybody were holding or who clapped for what. We had a message that this guy is going to massively increase prices for the American people because of these across-the-board tariffs. I heard as an Arizonan, and I hope all of my Arizona colleagues will be on the record on this, but this president just came after the greatest economic policy in Arizona history, the CHIPS and Science Act, because TSMC just announced another $100 billion of investment in Arizona, which is because of the investments that both Intel and TSMC have already made, building upon what was there. And that was done because of the CHIPS and Science Act, which is not just a subsidy. More importantly, it's an investment in workforce development and education of the next generation of semiconductor industry employees. And it's an investment in basic science to make sure that scientifically we are at the highest levels in the world from a semiconductor perspective. And he just acted and said we are going to tear down the existing CHIPS and Science Act and never do another one. You can't show your face in Arizona if you support that kind of policy and rhetoric.
Mike, have you got a favorite gaslighting episode from the speech?
Well, the whole thing was lie after lie. It was just a blizzard of lies. And Greg made the good point about him wanting to balance the budget. What a absolute joke. This is a guy who wants to gut programs at the same time as dramatically cutting taxes for the wealthiest Americans, biggest corporations. And no fiscal conservative can support the budget, the monstrosity that they've come up with. That'll increase the national debt by another $4 trillion. Could be double or triple that if they include some of the other proposals that Trump made on the trail. And let us not forget, Jared, that when Donald Trump was a candidate for president in 2016, he said he would eliminate the national debt if he was given the opportunity. That's what he said. Elect me as president, I will eliminate the national debt. He added $8 trillion to the debt, roughly a quarter of what we have today because of Donald Trump in only 4 years. And the interest we pay on the debt has exceeded our military spending for the first time in American history. So what do we need to do? A balanced approach to get back to some fiscal sanity, not doubling down on massive tax cuts that help the wealthiest Americans like Elon Musk, while at the same time hurting the most vulnerable in our society. If you gut Medicaid the way they want to, which in California, as you know, Jared, is Medi-Cal, you're talking about seniors who might have to wind up on the street. You're talking about children that may not have health insurance. It's disgraceful. And they want to go after nutrition aid. Then you're talking about veterans, and you're talking about children and others that might not have enough to eat.
Yep.
It's disgraceful what they're trying to do.
100% of the people with any kind of disability depend on Medicaid, Medi-Cal in our state. So yeah, those cuts would be devastating.
I have to.
What's that?
Seeing DJ Daniel, that 13-year-old kid battling brain cancer,
Right.
getting the Secret Service badge, and he was obviously very touched by that. I thought that was a touching moment for a kid that is surviving brain cancer. And the best thing we can do for DJ is not just give him a symbolic badge, but make sure that we are investing in the NIH research into cures for cancer. That is life-saving research.
Yes.
We need to continue moving. That kid was cute. That was a touching moment. And the best thing we can do is continue to support cancer research.
So
You know,
I agree, and I would
Yeah.
I would give that a nomination for the Gaslight Award because we all love that kid. We were all moved by his story. But if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the cancer related to a toxic chemical exposure? And I believe that we kind of depend on a bunch of federal agencies like EPA to protect us from that kind of thing. And as you point out, National Institute of Health is going to make possible all of these breakthroughs that enable this young man and others to live out their aspirations and achieve their dreams. Trump is doing damage to all of these things while kind of holding people up as a prop.
So, Jared, you couldn't be more correct about this. The guest that I brought, a constituent of mine, is a two-time cancer survivor. The first time he had leukemia, and he was able to get into a clinical trial funded by the NIH. And this was at the University of Texas, MD Anderson. He was able to get that trial, take this experimental drug, saved his life. A number of years go by, he gets cancer a second time, blood cancer, gets into a second clinical trial, again funded by the National Institutes of Health, by the federal government, again saved his life. And there are people like that all across the country that are here, that are alive today because of that funding. Not only is it good for saving lives, it's also good for all of our economy in areas where this research occurs. Like in my community, UC San Diego has $153 million a year in NIH funds. You take that away, and it's a whole ecosystem of private companies, of private research that, if that seed is not planted by the NIH, those companies will not be motivated and incentivized to continue to develop the cures of the future. We could not be doing a stupider thing than cutting this basic medical research.
Here, here. All right. One final WTF question for you guys. What TF is going on with our Republican colleagues in Congress as they clap along with every insane thing that Donald Trump says, including stuff that is crossing all kinds of things that have been red lines for them, in some cases for their whole career. I mean, watching what he's doing with trade wars, watching what he's doing with our alliances, hearing him, hold up tariffs as a substitute for the CHIPS Act. We don't need a CHIPS Act. We just need to strategically give tariff relief to people and we'll get even more. We don't even need immigration legislation. We just need, a kind of unhinged, crazy president to scare people away from our border. These guys are just clapping through all of this stuff that they know to be false and absolutely insane. WTF with our Republican colleagues in Congress.
I'll jump in first. WTF in terms of them standing up to defend Congress against this massive attack by the executive branch. Putting aside partisan politics, you're in Congress. This guy is trying to take bills that we passed in a bipartisan way, the budget that we passed, signed by the president, and then he is saying he can unilaterally decide what actually gets spent and what doesn't get spent. That's just not an insult to the Republican members of Congress that voted for that budget, put their political reputations on the line to support those programs. It's an insult to our founding fathers who actually wanted equal branches of government, with our branch being the primary one when it comes to the purse strings. This is not a partisan fight. They are clapping along as that guy up at the podium is taking every ounce of power away from them, and they're in the majority. WTF.
Yeah. He's shredding Article 1. That's a good one. Mike.
I think there's two things going on. One is I think you got a lot of those members on the Republican side that support the policies. They love what they're seeing. They genuinely endorse and support everything that they're doing, and they couldn't care less about the Constitution because they haven't bothered to read it. I think that makes up a lot of folks, very sadly. Then you have the others who know better and are afraid. And what they're afraid of is a primary. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump have a very convenient relationship where any Republican that dares cross Donald Trump, Elon can fund a primary with unlimited dollars. And that's part of the reason I think that Trump keeps Elon around, along with X as a media platform. I know we're on Instagram tonight, but X is a very big microphone that Elon controls. And with it, a lot of reporters and opinion makers and others are on that platform, and Trump knows the power in that. But I think it's fear. And, you know, look, at the end of the day, people need to stand up for what they know to be right. They take an oath not to Donald Trump, not to any president, but to the Constitution of the United States. And I wish that they would uphold that oath.
All right. Well, thank you both.
No, what's your WTF moment? You don't get the.
Mike.
I see what he's doing here, though.
I kind of teased my W. To me, it was just the surreal experience of watching these Republicans clap along with, you know, claims that we just renamed the Gulf of Mexico into Gulf of America, and they're all on their feet, you know, with fawning applause over this idiocy.
Right.
We're going to take Greenland, and the people there are welcome to come to America. We're going to take back the Panama Canal. This is bonkers, and these guys are clapping along like it's some new religion.
Jared,
and they're part of the cult.
I was sitting with the ambassador from Panama as that was happening. He was not clapping.
Yeah. Well, it is crazy stuff, and we are making light of some of it, but it's deadly serious what's going on right now. The constitutional threat to the rule of law and to our democratic republic, the devastation that is going to start being felt by people all over this country from all of this crazy Doge nonsense and this disruption. And we could spend an entire WTF on that subject, and I hope maybe we'll be able to come back and do that. But thank you guys for tonight.
Jared's going to fix the Wi-Fi. We'll do it for.
Before we showered, you know, as we're drinking our coffee in shorts and sweatshirts, for the viewers, this is exactly we talk about this stuff all the time. It's awesome. So
at all hours.
I'll see you fine gentlemen back at the townhouse, and everybody should know Jared's an excellent landlord. Best decision I made 7 years ago. Beto O'Rourke had a race against Ted Cruz. Very sad that he lost. But the first thing I did is call Jared and said I want his place in the house.
I am a lucky man to have great roommates and great colleagues who are fantastic members of Congress. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for this WTF.
WTF, man. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.